$200,000 can support a retirement. It cannot support every version of retirement. As a rough starting illustration, 4% of $200,000 is about $8,000 a year, or $667 a month. So the real question is not, is $200,000 enough? It is, how much of your retirement must that money carry? If Social Security already covers most of the bills, $667 can buy breathing room. If the portfolio must also cover housing, healthcare, groceries, and major repairs, the same balance can become fragile very quickly. That's why two households can start with the same $200,000 and experience completely different retirements. Household A uses the money as a supplement. Household B uses it as a paycheck. The balance is identical. The load is not. And that load can be measured. Start with the monthly gap left after dependable income. Then add the financial shocks the account must survive and the number of years it must keep doing both. Here is why $200,000 is a useful benchmark. The Federal Reserve's 2022 survey found a median retirement account balance of about $200,000 for families aged 65 to 74 who had an account. Those figures are in 2022 dollars. That still does not tell us whether the money is enough. It tells us this is a real retirement situation, not an edge case. But the balance alone tells us almost nothing about the life it can support. Now compare it with spending. The Bureau of Labor Statistics put average annual spending for households aged 65 and older at about $61,000 in its 2023 to 2024 data. That is not a target. It is just an average across households with very different costs and lifestyles. But it shows the scale of the problem. At a 4% starting illustration, a $200,000 account produces $8,000 a year, not $61,000. For most households near this balance, the account cannot be the whole retirement paycheck. Retirement is more likely to be a team effort between Social Security, perhaps a pension, and savings. The $200,000 may cover only part of the monthly budget, but that part can still matter. It may fill the grocery gap, pay for an annual trip, absorb a property tax increase, or help during a year when one major expense runs higher than expected. Its value comes from the pressure it removes, not from pretending it is a $1 million portfolio in a smaller folder. This is where the $200,000 load test becomes useful. It asks three questions. What monthly gap must the account fill? What financial shocks must it absorb? And how long must it do both? Start with the monthly load. Take what your household expects to spend after taxes, then subtract Social Security, pensions, and any other income you can reasonably depend on. What remains is the retirement load carried by savings. Suppose Tom and Mary receive $3,200 a month from Social Security. That is close to the Social Security Administration's estimated January 2026 average for a retired couple when both people receive benefits. But this is only an illustration. Your benefits could be much higher or lower. Now, suppose their retirement life costs $3,850 a month after taxes. The gap is $650 a month, or $7,800 a year. About $1,000 goes toward property tax, homeowners insurance, and maintenance on a mostly paid-off home. About $800 goes toward groceries and normal household purchases. Around $650 covers Medicare premiums, supplemental coverage, prescriptions, dental care, and other health costs. About $450 goes toward transportation. Another $400 covers utilities, phones, and internet. That leaves roughly $550 for restaurants, gifts, hobbies, local travel, and the parts of life that make retirement feel like retirement. Those are not national recommendations. They are an illustration of the trade-offs inside a $3,850 monthly budget. A paid-off home doesn't create income, but it can remove the largest monthly claim against income. A reliable older car doesn't increase the account balance, but it can prevent a new payment from consuming almost the entire portfolio withdrawal. In a $200,000 retirement, what you no longer owe can matter almost as much as what you saved. The difference is the fixed load. One household uses the portfolio for choices. The other uses it for obligations. That $7,800 annual gap is 3.9% of a $200,000 portfolio. Morningstar's 2025 retirement income research used 3.9% as its base case starting rate for a 30-year retirement with inflation-adjusted spending under a specific portfolio model. That does not make 3.9% a guarantee. It gives us a useful comparison. For Tom and Mary, $200,000 is doing a manageable job. Social Security carries most of their spending. The portfolio fills the remaining $650 monthly gap. Now change only one number. Instead of spending $3,850 a month, Tom and Mary spend $4,200. The gap becomes $1,000 a month, or $12,000 a year. That is a 6% starting draw from $200,000. They didn't suddenly become reckless. Property taxes may be higher, they may still have a car payment, help an adult child, or simply live in a more expensive area, but the portfolio's job became 54% heavier because the annual load rose from $7,800 to $12,000. Before investment growth, inflation, taxes, and emergencies, $200,000 divided by $7,800 equals about 25.6 years. Divide it by $12,000, and the same account equals about 16.7 years. Those are not forecasts. Markets don't return 0% every year. Spending doesn't remain perfectly flat, and withdrawals may be taxed. Think of this as a pressure gauge. It shows how quickly a small monthly difference changes the work demanded from the account. Now push the gap to $1,300 a month. That is $15,600 a year, or 7.8% of the starting portfolio. With no growth, that load equals about 12.8 years of withdrawals. This is why $200,000 can look sufficient on a statement and still feel tight in real life. The problem is not necessarily the balance. The problem is a permanent gap that asks too much of it. So what does the workable version actually look like? It looks ordinary. Housing is controlled. That doesn't always mean the mortgage is gone, but the total housing cost fits inside dependable income without forcing large withdrawals every month. Consumer debt is low or temporary. A $600 car payment is $7,200 a year. On a $200,000 portfolio, that payment alone creates a 3.6% annual load before groceries, travel, home repairs, or health care enter the picture. Travel still happens, but it may be planned as a yearly amount instead of treated as a monthly lifestyle. Dining out is available, but it competes with other discretionary spending. A replacement vehicle is scheduled instead of financed as though retirement income were still a working paycheck. Tom and Mary can still enjoy retirement. Walking, gardening, visiting family, hobbies, local trips, volunteering, learning, and time with friends don't become lesser forms of retirement because they cost less. A good retirement isn't measured by how expensive Tuesday morning is. The monthly gap is only half the test. The next question is, what happens when retirement sends you a bill that doesn't arrive monthly? A $20,000 roof replacement, vehicle replacement, dental bill, or combination of repairs equals 10% of the original portfolio. It also equals more than 2.5 years of the $7,800 routine withdrawal in our more stable example. Picture a bad but completely believable year. Tom and Mary take their normal $7,800 withdrawal, replace a failing vehicle for $18,000, and pay another $4,000 in dental and home expenses. Total withdrawals hit $29,800. That is nearly 15% of the original account in 1 year. Spending principal is not the mistake. Principal is there to be used. The real problem is using it by accident because the plan pretended irregular costs did not count. With $200,000, a reserve is not dead money. It is what keeps a normal bad year from permanently increasing the monthly pressure on the account. Here is the trap. The income plan spends the whole account, while the emergency plan assumes those same dollars are waiting for the roof, the car, and the dentist. The money cannot do both jobs at the same time without consequences. Tom and Mary protect $30,000 as a reserve for home repairs, vehicle replacement, deductibles, and other irregular costs. That leaves $170,000 doing the routine income job. At a 3.9% illustration, $170,000 produces about $6,630 a year, or roughly $553 a month, not $650. The reserve doesn't have to sit in cash forever. The point is to stop pretending every dollar is available for routine spending. That's the difference between having a retirement account and having a retirement system. The account has a balance. The system gives each dollar a job. Then comes the part a balance cannot show by itself: time. $200,000 at age 67, after Social Security begins and Medicare eligibility arrives, can have a very different job from $200,000 at age 62. You can generally begin Social Security retirement benefits between ages 62 and 70. Waiting usually raises the monthly amount, up to age 70, but the larger check has a price when savings must cover the bills in the meantime. If Tom and Mary retire before benefits begin and need $40,000 from savings for one bridge year, that single year takes 20% of a $200,000 balance before the market or taxes even get involved. If the account has to cover several of those years, it's no longer just supplementing retirement. It's replacing the paycheck first and only later getting to act like a supplement. Healthcare can raise that price. Medicare eligibility generally begins at 65. If they retire earlier, they must add their actual insurance premiums and expected out-of-pocket costs to the load. With a larger portfolio, missing the estimate by several $1,000s is unpleasant. With $200,000, it can change the retirement date. That is why age and sequence matter as much as the balance. Time changes the plan for Tom and Mary. At some point, two Social Security checks may become one. A surviving spouse may receive the higher eligible benefit, but their household doesn't keep both full checks. Meanwhile, property tax, insurance, utilities, and home maintenance don't fall by 50%. Run a one-check version of their plan, too. If dependable income drops from $3,200 a month to $2,100, while spending only falls from $3,850 to $3,300, the portfolio gap jumps from $650 to $1,200 a month, and by then, the account may already be smaller. This is not about assuming the worst. It's about checking whether their retirement still works after their household changes. With a modest portfolio, that survivor test is part of the plan. Inflation adds another layer. Social Security includes annual cost of living adjustments, but household expenses don't all rise at the same speed. Insurance, home repairs, food, and care costs can all move differently. When the plan starts with no monthly margin, those increases have only one place to go: the portfolio. That's why flexibility matters more than pretending one withdrawal percentage will control the next 30 years. Reducing travel in a bad market, delaying a vehicle replacement, or using a reserve for a large bill can protect the routine income plan without turning retirement into permanent deprivation. Taxes matter too. If the $200,000 is inside a traditional IRA or 401k, withdrawals generally count as taxable income. Money in a Roth account or taxable brokerage account can produce a different after-tax result. Social Security benefits may also become partly taxable, depending on other income. So the load test works best with after-tax spending and after-tax income. A $1,000 withdrawal is not automatically $1,000 available for the electric bill, groceries, and the suspicious noise coming from the water heater. Retirement with $200,000 can work when dependable income covers most essential spending, housing, and debt are controlled, The portfolio gap is modest, and part of the balance remains available for irregular costs. In this simplified example, it starts becoming tight when the account must provide a permanent $1,000 or larger monthly gap. It becomes fragile when the same $200,000 must replace several years of income, pay pre-Medicare healthcare costs, support high fixed expenses, and absorb every major repair. The balance did not change in those three versions. The load changed. To run this on your own numbers, start with 4 lines: your annual after-tax spending, your annual dependable income, the routine gap the portfolio must fill, and the reserve floor you don't want routine spending to consume. Then compare the annual gap with the portion of the $200,000 that is truly available to support it. Test one normal year, one expensive year, and any years before Social Security or Medicare begins. That won't produce a perfect prediction. It will reveal the job you are assigning to the money. Retirement with $200,000 is usually a dependable income retirement with a portfolio supplement, not a portfolio-funded retirement with Social Security on the side. When dependable income covers the basics, $200,000 can buy breathing room, choices, and years of support. When the basics are not covered, the same balance can disappear faster than the statement suggests. So the question is not whether $200,000 sounds like enough. It is whether the job assigned to it is small enough to last. Subscribe to Benji Knows Money for practical retirement math built around real household decisions. In the next video, we'll compare $500,000 with $1 million in retirement and reveal the difference most people miss.